Imagine a world untouched by modern hands, a place where ancient civilizations thrived long before the rise of empires. Now, picture a man driven by an insatiable curiosity who ventures into the heart of the Amazon jungle in search of a legendary city, one that has eluded explorers for centuries. This man, Percy Fawcett, was not just any explorer. He was a seasoned adventurer, a man of science and spirit, whose tales of the Amazon's wonders inspired stories like Arthur Conan Doyle's The Lost World. But Fawcett's greatest obsession was the lost city of Z, a place shrouded in myth, said to be built of gold and stone, guarded by forces beyond our understanding. In 1925, Fawcett, his son Jack, and their friend Raleigh Ramel set out on an expedition to find this city. Did they find more than they bargained for?
Hello and welcome to another episode of the Deceptive Reality Podcast, a name that I very rarely forget now. My name is Nick, who is good at remembering things, and with me, as always, is the giggle mug Bert.
I don't know exactly what that means, but if I was a betting man, I would say that's probably pretty accurate.
It's a slang term for someone who is always smiling or in a good mood.
That should be you, Nick, really.
I think that's both of us, really.
I laughed. I think it was Joe I was talking to the other day, and Joe goes, I don't think I've ever seen a scene where Nick's not smiling on the podcast. I said, well,
I know. Despite the topics we're covering, I'm still smiling because I'm just enjoying myself. That's all.
Listen, he's just living his best life. I told Joe, I said, he is Canadian. So there is that.
Yeah, so
he's got that going for him. You know, I have to work on mine. I'm American. Okay. I got to pretend to be happy all the time.
I can't let the RCMP see me not smiling on video because then I'll get arrested. And that's right. No good.
That's no good.
That's bad for business.
It's not good for business at all. But man, yeah, I think that's pretty fitting, Nick. Listen, I'll take it. I'll accept that one. But you got to
you're
also.
Always laughing. What's that?
But you have to also as a requirement because you fit.
Yeah, I'm a total giggle mug.
Heck yeah, giggle mug. You know, when you said that, it reminds me of Harry Potter because that sounds like something that
like Hufflepuff or something like that.
Exactly. That could be our. What was that? Not like a class. What?
House.
House.
Harry Potter.
That could be our house.
Yeah.
Nick.
I'll tell you. I laugh quite frequently, but sometimes I laugh so hard that I swear that I've heard my ribs crack.
I mean, this is why I'm so curious.
Dangerous.
This is why I'm so curious. Next year when we go on this ghost hunt, Nick, if you're going to be smiling the whole time while that's going on too.
Oh, heck yeah, man. I'm going to be in my element. Lurking around in the dark. That's me. That's my zone.
That's it. That's your bang zone, Nick.
Yeah.
Man, it's crazy. Well, for anyone that doesn't know, I did 2 of mine last time, right? Yeah, 2 of mine last time. So now Nick is doing 2 of his this week.
That's right.
So you're going to see us wear the same thing 2 episodes in a row, like I told you guys last week. Don't freaking judge us, okay? We're recording these on the same night.
Thing as each other.
Yeah, exactly. We coordinated this time.
That's right. Well, not accidental.
Yeah, it was not accidental. Nick's like, I'm going to go wear my shirt.
Yeah, this is my favorite shirt. And every time I wear it and I'm out and about, kids are like, oh, Ghostbusters. And I'm like, yeah. It is Ghostbusters.
That's the joy of Canada, because here in the States, no one cares. They're like, yeah, that guy's a nerd.
Nerds are cool here. Aren't they cool in the U.S.?
I wish they was, Nick. I'd be super cool if that was the case.
Man, I thought that was everywhere now.
No, unfortunately not. Trust and believe. But yeah, we coordinated. It's exciting.
Isn't that in the Bible, the geek shall inherit the earth?
The meek. You're close.
Oh, dang it.
You're very close. Geeks weren't around back then, Nick.
Oh, they were. They were having abacus battles in the alleyways and stuff.
You know, it's funny because somebody, I don't know if I should have taken this as an insult, but I was talking to someone. This was, let's say it was like a week or 2 ago. and they watch one of our podcasts and they go, "You know a lot of stuff about the Bible," and I'm sitting there going, "Okay." They're like, we were a little shocked by that with you. You didn't take me as a biblical scholar. I'm like, gosh dang, man, I'm over here trying to change lives and kind of hurt my soul a little bit. I'm like, man, I don't know if I impressed them at a high level or like I didn't have none of that.
You must be out there sinning that they wouldn't expect you to know Bible stuff.
That's what I'm saying. I'm a doggone sinner out in the world. I didn't even know it, Nick.
Yeah.
I just thought I was chillaxing a little bit.
Yeah, you're like going. You leave the podcast where you talk about Bible stuff. You go outside and you slap the first person you see.
Yeah, I mean that is the American way.
I gotta tell that dream that
you should.
So next year we're going to do ghost hunting, and I had a dream that I went to the U.S. to visit Bert, and the first thing he does is like when I get across the border, he's like, "Here's your handgun." And I have never shot a gun at something I couldn't see before. Like, I'm very good. I took my hunter safety, all that. But in the dream, I'm just like, well, this is what I'm supposed to do in America. And I start blasting it into the woods and into the sky and bang, 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 just having a good time.
I need to add like a little cartoon AI created Nick shooting a gun up in the air right there in that segment. Just a picture of Nick.
just put my face on Yosemite Sam.
Yeah, that's what I need to do.
We have the same color hair and everything.
Same hair color. That's perfect. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's what
that works.
That's what we're going to do.
I guess I need two of them then.
You do. Bang, 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 bang. Don't worry, Nick. You get 3 complimentary just crossing the border.
Just in case you lose one of them, I guess.
Hey, you lose one, you got 2 more. That's what it's all about. You know, it's funny. I was recording my podcast yesterday. Not that you guys are going to understand. This is like weeks from when this episode's going to come out. But I'm sitting there and like I'm getting into the element. I get to a real spooky spot. I'm thinking I'm going to put this at the end as like a what do they call that? A blooper reel. Mm-hmm. There's a fly in my house and it goes like you just barely hear it. And it lands right on my mic. I about jumped out of my chair. It's the scariest thing that I think I've ever experienced in my entire life.
Wow. It must have really, come in at a very tense time.
I can't remember now because but I shoot it away. And then there was multiple times where you just hear. Finally, the idiot landed on my light pod that was back to the side. It's like my side pod.
Yeah. And
I'm looking for something on my desk to smack it with. And the only thing I had was this box of Velcro strips. For anyone that doesn't know, if you're a photography person, you need to have some Velcro strips. But I smacked the life out of it, but that scared me so bad. Oh my gosh.
You smacked him so hard his ancestors felt it.
They really did. It was horrible, man. I've never had an insect land on the actual mic in my audio because if I don't have monitors in and I can't hear myself, I scream. I don't know why. I have no clue why. Like I just do the podcast at the top of my lungs and it's just not good. So I have to have monitors in so I can hear.
Oh, okay.
And that fly oh my God.
Sound like a jet landing.
Was what it sounded like. It's scary. I think I ducked for cover and everything. Like it was bad. I was
wow.
Like, what was that?
You got to keep that in. That's gold.
I did. I separated. I'm like, I might put that at the end, but I'm going to have to. The fly was so loud that it like distorted my audio.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And then I'm like, if I wasn't talking before that happened, that would have been beautiful to just have as its own separate audio track. Just for like our Halloween episode or something, have a fly land on the screen.
Oh, yeah. That would have been perfect.
That'd have been perfect. But the audio was so distorted. I'm like, I can't really use it for that. But man, it was
you'll get another fly one day.
I hope not. I literally peed myself. The sad part is I don't, podcasts, I'm very clean mouthed, and I'm pretty sure I dropped like 2 or 3 really, really bad words. Like,
wow.
I think I went into the rated R area when it happened because it scared me so bad.
You went into the swearing bank and dug deep.
Dug real deep on that one, Nick. Oh man. Speaking of digging deep, This is
right.
Nick's episode. And the best part is, neither one of us knows which episode it's going to be because he gave me 2. And
that's right.
There's no labeling because I can't know what it is. So
right.
I've got Nick episode 1 and Nick episode 2.
Which you've named, and I don't know which one you named which either. So
right. Because I had to name
it's
them.
It's going to be a total surprise.
Total surprise.
It's probably not going to be as scary as The Fly, but we'll see.
We can only hope. We can only hope. Well, you ready to get this shing ding on the road, Nick?
Yeah, let's find out what we're talking about.
Woohoo!
Percy Fawcett was an extraordinary man, born in 1867 in Torquay, England, into a world that seemed too small for his boundless curiosity and adventurous spirit. After a distinguished career in the British Army, he turned his attention to the uncharted regions of South America. With a compass in one hand and a machete in the other, Fawcett plunged into the Amazon rainforest, a place where few dared to venture. His expeditions were marked by incredible discoveries. He claimed to have seen a giant anaconda over 60 feet long, a creature that defied belief. His reports of strange ancient ruins, massive stone carvings hidden deep in the jungle, and encounters with indigenous tribes who had never seen a European before were the stuff of legend. Fawcett's tales of the Amazon's mysteries captured the imagination of many, including his friend, the famed author Arthur Conan Doyle. Inspired by Fawcett's accounts, Doyle wrote The Lost World, a novel about an isolated plateau where dinosaurs still roam. The world Doyle created was fantastical, but it was rooted in the very real stories Fawcett brought back from his journeys. But as thrilling as those stories were, they were only the beginning. The Amazon held secrets far greater than anyone could imagine, and Fawcett was determined to uncover them.
Fawcett's Journal, April 1910.
The jungle breathes with a life all its own, a pulse that quickens as one delves deeper into its heart. Today, we encountered a creature of unimaginable size, a serpent as thick as a tree trunk, slithering through the underbrush with a grace that belies its massive form. The men were terrified, yet I found myself in awe of its ancient presence. There is something here, in these untamed lands, that speaks of a world far older than we can comprehend. I must press on. The ruins I've glimpsed hint at a civilization lost to time, but not to memory. I will find it.
So do you know this fella or do you not know this fella?
Well, I don't think that I do. That being said, we had an episode, which was the Axeman episode, where I'm like, man, this sounds familiar.
Right.
And I kind of knew the story, but I kind of didn't. I feel like I know about an explorer that found these huge snakes. And I want to say, I'm going to hold that. I'm going to hold that thought in the event that this is the same story, because I don't want to give anything away if it is the same one. My guess is it's not.
No, I don't think it is, because it's not really about the snake. Although this fellow was one of the first fellas to report back about these giant anacondas.
Well, that's what I'm saying. Mine is not about snakes either. In mine, the guy had found these large snakes. I don't think they were anacondas, though. I thought he said they were Titan boas. He found the world's first living Titan boa, and he said they still existed or something. But he found 2 other things. He was like an explorer.
Yeah, and that's what Percy Fawcett is.
I don't know if this is the same story or not. We'll come back to that.
Yeah, keep a pin in it, like we say on those other episodes. But this fella was Percy Fawcett. I'm going to keep saying his name so we get familiar with it. He was like real close buddies with Sir Arthur Conan Doyle. He's the Sherlock Holmes guy. And he wrote a book called The Lost World, which we've seen different movies and stuff based off of that. And it's a lot like Jurassic Park, except instead of humans making the dinosaurs, we find a place where they already exist. And a lot of this stuff comes from the tales of Percy Fawcett, who saw a lot of things for the first time because he was not, I don't know if he was the first, but he was one of the first that was really digging into the Amazon. Like he was going deep up and down the river, contacting tribes, all this kind of stuff. But what I find real interesting that I'd seen in movies before, but I didn't think it was real, is they used to have adventure societies. Have you ever seen these where it's like a bunch of rich men who if you looked at them, you never thought they'd leave their homes, but they're going off to all corners of the earth and they're exploring things and coming back. And they're mostly doing it for bragging rights to say, this is my big story. Like, this is what I've seen.
I don't know that I've seen anything like that. I mean, I guess to a degree, it would probably be the equivalent of that Titanic explorer thing that we lost recently.
Oh, the rich fellas that went down. I can picture them being a part of something like that.
Yeah. Because that was like some form of like a society, something quest, right? What was that thing called? Star Quest?
Sure.
I can't remember. But yeah, I think they was part of I know that they was giving money to whatever it was. But they were kind of like the explorers that was going out and doing things that the average person could not do.
Yeah. And that's what a lot of these guys were doing. But I guess they didn't have TV, so this is why a lot of rich people were into these kind of things. Did you ever see the movie or read the book Around the World in 80 Days?
Yes.
You remember there was where he made that bet to the Adventurer Society there?
Yeah.
That was a real thing, and I never realized. I thought that was just something they made up for that.
Yeah, I assume the same.
That thing. Yeah, but so he was a part of that. Most of his friends were. Sir Arthur Conan Doyle was a part of it. So he inspired some stuff. He contacted a lot of, at the time, uncontacted tribes, which, as we know, can be very dangerous.
Very dangerous.
There was that missionary kid that got killed by the Sentinelese people just a few years back.
Correct. Did you ever see that picture of that airplane that apparently flew over that island? And
they're all like sort of shaking their spears at it and stuff like that.
Well, apparently this airplane got so low down that when it got back to the spot, they heard stuff hitting the bottom of the plane.
Oh, really?
And there was a bunch of spears. I don't know if that's true or false, but there's a picture that's going around of this plane with there had to be 50 of these spears in the bottom of it. Could you imagine?
Reminds me of Indiana Jones when he was leaving that temple there.
Kind of the same thing. I don't know if that's true. In today's day and age, you can't really believe anything that you see or hear at this point. So who knows what's true? But
are you familiar, sort of on the same topic, since we're talking about uncontacted tribes? Mm-hmm. Do you know Stephen King's The Stand?
The Stand.
Yeah, it's where the whole world is wiped out by a virus.
Yes.
And then half of the people are going to God's side and half of them are going to the devil's side. He's not really the devil, but... So
the funny thing is, I started that book probably...
Yeah.
I don't know how long ago it was, but I lost interest 3/4 of the way in. I never finished the book.
Oh, really?
I'd made it to the part, and I'm sure I'm not giving anything away, but they was in the hospital. And the hospital was regulated by all these different army people.
Oh, okay.
And that's where it kind of drifted off.
Oh, yeah, I know exactly where that is. That's where they've got Stu Redman for the longest time because he's immune.
Yes.
Yeah.
I don't know how far that is.
Not very.
Oh, I thought I was farther into the book than that.
It's still good. It's still good. But there's a couple. They redid the mini series, so there's a couple. You could watch it now.
Yeah.
But in the new one, Stephen King redid the ending. Mm-hmm. And man, it's been enough years, so I don't care if I spoil something. The guy who most people looked at as the devil, he's not really. Mm-hmm. But after he was defeated, he reappeared in the jungle. He was like butt naked, and there was like an uncontacted tribe. And he was like, oh, this is perfect. And he became their god.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so that's pretty wild.
That's wild.
But it's way better for these tribes that are uncontacted for them not to be contacted by us.
Oh, for sure.
Because it doesn't lead to good things.
No, yeah. That's things, unfortunately, you just got to kind of leave that kind of stuff be. Let them figure out, you know.
Yeah.
It was like our conversation we had, I don't know how many episodes that was, maybe 2 episodes ago when we was talking about the Roswell and how, you know, you talked about if we had all this technology and just sprinkle it in, you know, the more I've thought about that since we've been on that episode, which, by the way, if you've not seen that episode, you definitely want to go back and check that out. That was a banger Nick episode. But it's like when you've got something like that, I feel like that would be the equivalent of what we're talking about here from the standpoint of you get so much of something that doesn't make sense.
Right.
And it's like, what do you do with all that information? And these tribes are the same way. You know, we're basically the equivalent of gods or, you know, the enemy in this case.
Aliens, really, I guess. We're the aliens to them.
Correct. And that would have to be just the craziest thing to see. It'd be like if we were, you know, visited by something and it had like these special spacesuits, like we're wearing all these clothes of multiple fabrics, and we've got these watches and lights, and we can start fires and, you know, things that they are just enamored by. They're like, oh my gosh, like, how do you do this crazy stuff, Magic Man? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I know, right?
It'd be crazy.
But I mean, and it traditionally doesn't work out for them anyway, because, you know, look at it this way. People who have been part of the modern world, if they come from a poor part of a city, they have a real hard time keeping up and breaking into a better life. People who have no education, uncontacted tribes, and now they're expected to live with everyone else.
Right.
They can't compete.
Well, not only that, but there's so many different diseases that we can contract in. Like you look at the early days when, you know, the Pilgrims came across and we started colonizing the United States.
Right.
You know, a lot of those Indians caught all the different diseases that we brought across from, you know, our foreign lands to them. And it's like War of the Worlds with Tom Cruise.
Right. You know, I love that movie, by the way.
I love it too. It's one of my favorites. It's probably my favorite adaptation of that. But it's like they come here. We can't stop them. They're running through us. But it was just our common cold virus that took them down. Like,
it's dirty humans.
Dirty humans, man. That's why you can't be using us as a food source.
Yeah, exactly. On a tangent of that, I didn't realize that there was a book of War of the Worlds. And it is fantastic. I've been listening to the audiobook. So good.
I don't know that I knew that.
No, I thought it was all of it was a radio play, but I don't know if the book came after or before.
It would have had to.
But it is so good. Just a massive adventure. Can't recommend it enough.
That's interesting. Have you heard the original radio show?
Little bits and pieces.
Yeah,
I'd be interested in sitting in front of a glowing radio box and listening to that.
Me too. That would be fascinating to do. I would love to do something like that.
I'd love to go back in time to when everyone believed it was real and just be in the midst of that chaos. That would be fantastic.
That would be crazy. People, I mean, they was preparing for the worst.
Yeah.
It's kind of like, did you ever see that UK television show around that haunted family?
Yes, the one that they fabricated, but it fooled everyone.
It fooled everybody. It's kind of the same thing, but new age.
That got removed from the air for a while.
It did. Someone got in trouble for that too. I forget.
Yeah,
I think the channel or someone, the producer or someone got in trouble. But like they was taking call-ins from like people. They're like, well, what did you see, Sally, from blah, blah, blah. They're like, I saw a ghost. It was around the corner when they's turning the camera around. That's a horrible English accent, by the way. Sorry about that.
Right.
I can barely do an English accent. And this is where I'm from. But, yeah, that's kind of the equivalent, same equivalent, really, if you think about it. Just a more new age version of that.
Yeah. That was brilliant too. I really liked what they did there. That was a great Halloween night thing that they did.
Correct. Well, not only that, but they made it look like it was the one girl at that one point, because she was an actress in there. They kind of caught her doing something, and then later they told her, go ahead and make it look like maybe you was causing part of it. And then even the people's calling in, they're like, we think she's just doing that because of X, Y, and Z. Maybe she's possessed. I'm like, oh my gosh. Like, it's crazy. These people's falling for this.
I know. You know what, though? I think it's easy to fall for that kind of thing.
Yeah, you're probably right.
Because like the 9 other times they've been presented a similar thing.
Yeah.
It's not been a hoax, or at least not that anyone's admitted to.
For sure. But if you think about it, nowadays, and this is why I think it's so important that so many of us, especially like me and you, like when we go to do some of these tours, these ghost tours and stuff like that, we preserve all the original files and put them somewhere.
Right.
Because I think that's the most important part, because otherwise we're just contaminating actual research that happens. Because when you go to some place like this, some place that's quote unquote haunted, shoot, you might go weeks and not have anything.
Oh yeah, for sure.
You know, then you got a show like that. It's like everything's going crazy in one night, 24 hours. Like,
whatever. Exactly.
Whatever.
I just hope I don't split my pants, because then that'll be on preserved for everyone to see.
It will. Preservation. You better get some brand new pants, Nick, when you come down.
That's right. I'm gonna have like be one of those guys that's got pants upon pants going on.
I forget who it was. I think I was talking to my mom about this, and we was talking about where you're from. And she goes, how far is that from that place in New York? I'm like, 15 hours. Like it's like there's a little distance. She goes, how far is it for you? I'm like, 3 hours, 3.5 hours. She goes, it's not really fair, is it? Like, I don't know what you want me to do about this.
Can't control geography, really.
Can't control that. Good night.
Thanks for thinking of me, though. I appreciate that.
Exactly. Cheesy Pete's. Gosh.
She's looking out for me.
I guess. Man, all the haunted stuff happens in New York. It's not my fault. New York, New Jersey.
Oh, yeah.
It's nuts.
But I guess we got off on a little tangent there.
Yeah, we did.
But which is fine. We do that all the time. If you're not used to it by now, check out all our other episodes.
Yeah, sorry.
It's pretty normal. We just like to chat. What can I say?
This is how we got into podcasting to begin with.
Exactly.
This was us back in the day. We'd move from subject to subject to subject to subject. Now we just try to have the bulk of one podcast.
Yeah, we try to focus it a little now.
You know what we should do one day, Nick? Maybe we'll do this for season 3, is spend like the first half an hour just talking about all the crazy zany things we've seen through the week, and then go into our podcast episode.
Oh, that might be a good idea.
That way we get out of our systems.
Yeah. You know what? That's thinking ahead. Yeah. Look forward to that in season 3, because I think that might be something we might stick to.
That might be a good idea. Like things that we see through the week where they don't necessarily fit, or they're too small as segments to really cover in an episode, but might be fascinating to talk about. Like Nick and I talked about 2 of them before we even jumped on here that I saw from last week.
And plus, people will be able to skip it, because I know there's some people this annoys.
Yeah.
And right now, my opinion is, well, sorry about that.
Sorry.
Tough luck. But
this is us. Sorry.
This is us. But maybe next season you can skip past all our chit chat and go right to the episode.
Go straight to the episode. All the good stuff.
Yeah. But anyway, so you've not heard of Percy Fawcett?
I don't think so. I don't believe so. No. I know of a case similar, but I don't know if it's the same. I'll know once we get further in.
Yeah, we're going with him on an adventure, because the next segment will give you, I think, a little bit more of an idea of what he's up to. and maybe you'll have heard of him then, because there's a lot of things in the Amazon that are kind of strange, and I know you've heard of some of them before.
Okay.
So why don't we roll into the second one and see what's up a little more.
Percy Fawcett's fascination with the Amazon deepened with each expedition, but it was the legend of a lost city that truly captured his imagination. The indigenous tribes spoke of a place hidden deep within the jungle, a city of immense wealth and great antiquity that they called Z. According to the legends, Z was the capital of an ancient civilization, far older and more advanced than any known to history. The city was said to be built of stone, with roads paved in gold, towering temples, and statues that reached for the heavens. But Z was also a place of danger, a city guarded by spirits, where outsiders were not welcome. In 1920, Fawcett discovered an ancient manuscript in a Brazilian library, known as Manuscript 512. Written by a Portuguese explorer in the 18th century, it described a ruined city deep in the Amazon, remarkably similar to the tales of Z. The manuscript spoke of grand avenues, towering stone arches, and inscriptions in an unknown language. For Fawcett, this was the final piece of the puzzle. He became convinced that Z was real and that it was his destiny to find it. But the Amazon was a place of great peril, and the legends warned that those who sought Z would never return. Yet, Fawcett was undeterred, driven by the allure of the unknown.
Fawcett's Journal, June 1921.
The legends of the tribes grow more tantalizing with each passing day. They speak of Z in hushed tones, as if uttering its name could summon its ancient guardians. The city, they say, is not just a place, but a living entity, a heart of gold and stone buried deep within the earth. Today, I found what I believe to be an ancient road, overgrown with vines and almost indistinguishable from the jungle floor. But there it was, a path leading ever deeper into the green abyss. The jungle itself seems to resist our progress, as if it knows where we are headed. But I cannot turn back. Z is out there, waiting for me.
This is not the same story that I'm thinking of. I know that.
Okay, what's the one you're thinking of?
There was an explorer that found this city, and I want to say the way that he found it was he originally went to war for a country. I can't remember where he's from. For some reason, I thought it was Australia, but I might be incorrect. But he went to war, and when they went to war, he found this area that he went back to later as an explorer at that point. And he found these big snakes. He thought they were Titan boas. But what the most impressive part was, he also said it was the first series of dinosaurs that the world had ever seen. And that the way that this area was, they were able to thrive in these woods. It was like it wasn't even woods. It was like a wetland, so to speak. I want to say this was like Taiwan, or
I'm wondering if it's not South America. Like
could be.
The reason I think it could be South America, because they have a legend there called I've mentioned this before, and its name's so hard to say. You'll remember it probably as soon as I say it. The Mekele Mbembe.
Yeah.
That big dinosaur that they found and they killed, and they ate it, and the whole village got sick and most of them died.
Yeah.
But that's what I was thinking. But because there's also a lost city there, which is the one people always call El Dorado, the city of gold.
El Dorado.
Yeah. But that's not Z.
That's not Z. You know what Z reminds me of, though?
What?
Atlantis.
Oh, it's interesting that you say that.
That's what it kind of sounds like. That's what it reminds me of anyway when I hear it.
Well, I'm not going to give too much away, but did you know that there was another city that had almost an identical story to Atlantis, and people thought it was a legend as well.
Mm-hmm.
And when people used to say they like Lost City, they say, oh, it's a mystery like Atlantis or this other city. Well, they found that city.
Oh, they did?
Yeah.
Oh, that's fascinating.
I'm not going to go into that because that's a little later on.
Oh, gotcha. Okay. That's
But
fair.
what I find interesting is the Lost City of Z is supposedly a huge city.
Mm-hmm.
Huge city. And it was supposedly advanced. And all these stories like Atlantis and a bunch of other ones talk about these advanced cities that get almost like they get just wiped off the face of the planet.
Mm-hmm.
And that's another thing that happened to the Lost City of Z, because now they're saying, well, it was once a thriving city, huge technology. They're like, there was stuff there we didn't even understand, and then just gone off the face of the earth. Now, this was a city of the size that, you know how they say all roads lead to Rome?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Well, in the Amazon, apparently there were roads everywhere that led to the city of Z. And every once in a while, people will find one of these roads and they're like almost like paved roads. But then it's been so long that they lose track of where it's going and they can't follow it.
Oh, wow.
And that's what Percy Fawcett was finding.
I feel like they could use that. What do they call those things now? Like those little sonar systems that they use?
Yeah. And they've actually done some of that, like from planes in the Amazon. And they found evidence that there were giant structures in a lot of places. The Amazon used to have a lot more people in it.
That's interesting. Really makes you think, like, how many of these cities do we keep kind of figuring out and finding, and then we go, oh yeah, okay, well, I guess this was XYZ, but what we don't consider is a lot of these places were significantly advanced in comparison.
Oh yeah.
I mean, nowadays I feel like everything's just cookie cutter at this point. Like there's nothing that's super high advanced. If you've seen one building this large, you've seen another building this large. Like there's nothing. But I feel like if there was a catastrophic event now, there'd be no indications that we was ever here versus some of these other structures that you can see.
Yeah, like our stones and cement don't last like theirs do, and we know that already.
Right.
But yeah, but we also talked in the other episode where it was like lost technology.
Yeah.
That the more advanced you are, the less of a trace you leave if something happens to you.
That's true.
So it can be hard to find. Like there could have been something under the ground here. Actually, it's funny. I went to Toronto a couple weeks, or I'd say maybe a month or so ago now. When I was living up there, they found a village under the city when they redid the pavement. No one knew it was ever there.
That's crazy.
Yeah, like this stuff happens all the time.
That's insane.
But it hurts my head to think that we could lose a massive civilization and just not know about it.
Oh yeah. Well, I think it was your episode we talked about did we cover this in an episode or did I watch this somewhere else? I can't remember, but there was an entire city that was underneath another city.
You brought that up in another episode, actually.
Yeah, it was fascinating because I forget how many miles of city was underneath the road or underneath this entire city that was above. And it wasn't until they started kind of going around they go, this is like a city underneath a city. And then the question became, well, why would they build this city underground?
Right. But they didn't.
But they did not. It was a case where they believe it was just build up, and then everything just kind of happened. There was another episode that I watched somewhere where and it's kind of a fascinating story, and we might want to do an episode on this eventually, but they believe that there was these Bigfoot creatures, which might be more interesting for than our last Bigfoot episode, but
I hope so.
they basically looked at Bigfoot as though it was a predator.
Oh.
And when we came around, we were so inadequate to them that they were hunting us down in the nighttime, and we couldn't stop it.
Oh.
So we started going down into caves and building cities underneath the ground. And the reason we did that was because there was only one way in and one way out.
Mm-hmm.
So we would defend just the small spot of that area.
Choke point.
Like a choke point, yeah.
Yeah.
But that's how we survived until we was able to fight back against these, the equivalent of like Bigfoot.
Yeah. That sounds a little similar to the story of the red-headed giants that the natives tell, which probably must have been my ancestors or something.
It could be. I believe that is actually an offshoot of that same exact story, I believe.
Ah, okay.
Because I believe they brought that up.
Certain part.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They brought that up as hey, this is in Native American folklore.
Oh, there's some just amazing Native American folklore. I know we touch on it sometimes, but yeah, I want to cover more of that very soon. That kind of stuff.
So yeah, even though I thought my story was kind of what this started out as, obviously, as we went looking for this city, it's like, okay, well, there's no dinosaurs in this, folks. Sorry.
Yeah. No, well, I mean, he saw some weird stuff and it made Arthur Conan Doyle think of dinosaurs.
I mean, there you go. Hey.
But there's no more dinosaurs in this story.
Fine.
But it could get weird at some point.
We like it weird.
Yeah, exactly. So I've added the journal entries on here, and just as an FYI, the journal entries are based on actual entries and stuff like that. They're not word for word as entries because I don't have all that.
Sure.
So they're a little fictionalized for the podcast, but I thought they add sort of like a little layer to this adventure.
Oh, for sure.
Are you interested in going to the next part to see if we can get a little more? We're basically following him on his journey to find this city.
We're basically on this journey with him, Nick.
Exactly. Let's pretend we're on the journey and we're miserable. I'm thinking mosquitoes.
Oh, man, I hate mosquitoes.
Me too.
In April 1925, Percy Fawcett set out on what he believed would be the greatest adventure of his life. Accompanied by his 21-year-old son, Jack, and Jack's best friend, Raleigh Rimmel, Fawcett ventured into the heart of the Amazon in search of the lost city of Z. The world watched with anticipation as the trio embarked on their journey, carrying only the bare essentials and Fawcett's unwavering belief in the existence of Z. Unlike his previous expeditions, this one was shrouded in secrecy. Fawcett refused to disclose the exact location of the city, fearing that others might try to steal his discovery. The expedition was fraught with danger from the very start. The Amazon rainforest, with its dense foliage, venomous creatures, and unpredictable weather, was an unforgiving environment. Yet, Fawcett pressed on, driven by his obsession. As they ventured deeper into the jungle, the signs that they were close began to multiply. They found ancient pottery shards, strange symbols etched into stones, and remnants of what appeared to be man-made structures. Fawcett was convinced they were on the right path, but the deeper they went, the more the jungle seemed to close in on them, as if it were alive and aware of their presence.
Fawcett's Journal, May 1925.
We have crossed into territory that no man has seen before. The jungle is denser here, almost suffocating in its intensity. Today, we discovered what I believe to be the outer wall of Z, massive stones carved with symbols that defy understanding. The air is thick with an energy I cannot describe, as if the very ground hums with anticipation. Jack and Raleigh are strong, but I see the fear in their eyes. They sense it too. Something is watching us, waiting, but we are so close. I can feel it in my bones. Z is near, and with it, the answers to mysteries as old as time.
So did you catch one big mistake that he's making this time around? He's been to the jungle a lot.
Yes.
He is so certain that he knows where Z is. And in fact, he thinks he's found the outer walls of it, of this massive city. And he's sending back letters, but no one knows where he is. He's so sure that he's found it. He's terrified to tell anyone where he is or where he's been. He's not given back any details of the sort. So, if something were to happen to him, there's not going to be any rescue party.
I mean,
and his son and his friends getting a little nervous.
Would you tell someone though, Nick?
I would tell someone, I'm sure of it. Well, you wouldn't catch me in the rainforest for sure. Number one.
Oh, come on, Nick.
No, but I'd tell someone. There must be someone he could trust, his wife or, someone. But he kept it an absolute secret.
Well, he's probably scared that the information would get out, not necessarily from them,
right,
but by a mistake or something of that equivalent. That'd be my guess anyway, if I was a betting man.
Well, there was a huge amount of competitiveness in the Adventure Society. I know we talked around the world in 80 days. It wasn't uncommon, and this had happened to Percy, because I've read the book written about him years ago, is that he'd find out about something, and if someone else could figure out any way to get there before him or cut him off or sabotage him, they would do it. And it was just an acceptable part of the Adventure Society. He went digging for, I think it was something like 6 years at one time to find something, but people knew where he was. So someone was able to get there and cut him off, and they figured out something he had. So he was a little sore about that still.
That makes sense. I mean, I feel like that's a lot of people though. Even if you look at we talk about a little bit now, when you look at the pyramids and you look at some of the stuff that comes out from that, there's really only one curator.
Yeah.
And
Dr. Zahiawas or whatever it is.
They say that he is crooked. They say that that guy doesn't allow information out, and there's things that he knows is incorrect,
right,
but because he's taught everything now, he can't release the correct information, because then it makes him look like he doesn't know what he's doing.
Yeah. And like you said, he's got full control over the whole area.
Full control.
Now, the only thing I really know about him is when he used to have that TV show.
Yeah.
And he was quite abrasive, but I liked him nonetheless. So I don't know if all this other stuff is true or not, but I do know that he's in control of all that.
The way I look at it is, I feel like we know people so well, but then we know them as a TV personality or as a scholar in a certain area. And then it's years later when they're no longer around that the real stories come out, and you're like, man, that person's kind of a creep, or, hey, they really held back this information, or they did X, Y, and Z. So I don't know. That's kind of a tough gig, especially even what we're talking about here. I mean, if you're this guy and you're holding all the keys, I kind of get where he's coming from.
And you've been burned before multiple times.
Yep, that's what I'm saying. When you look at it from that standpoint, it's like, I probably would be the same if we're being completely transparent.
Oh, I know. But it's just like if you're going exploring in the real world, if you don't tell someone where you're going and you break your ankle out in the desert or something, you're done.
That's true.
Have you ever heard of the story of the M Cave?
I don't know. What is that?
It's about this guy who was always going hiking in one of the deserts, I think in like the Nevada desert. And he was always going in caves every time we found him. And he found one cave that was shaped like a perfect capital M. And he said, this is the only cave, as soon as I started to get near it, I started to vibrate or shake. And it's the only cave I've ever walked away from. And the closer I got, the more I vibrated, and I got this overwhelming sense of fear. And I took off. Like he said, I've been into thousands of caves and I enter every cave I come across, but I couldn't go into that one. And he said that online. And people said, oh, you got to go back, you know, take a gun, take whatever and that kind of thing. So he eventually went back, but he wasn't telling people where the M cave was.
Oh, and then later they was trying to figure out where this cave is. Is that the same story?
Yeah, because he never come back.
Yeah, he went missing. And didn't somebody else say they thought they found it? But when there's
been a few people who claimed that.
Yeah, because it was based on, like, he said there's like this tree, and then there was something at the mouth of the cave. Wasn't there a sign also? There was a sign that was near the cave.
There was a mine shaft that had a sign on it that wasn't too far.
I think that's what I'm thinking.
Which is near where they found his cell phone, by the way.
Yes.
But I thought about writing something about that for one of our episodes, but there's not enough to that story to do a whole episode.
No.
So I'm going to give it away. There's been some news that's come out since then. Because for the longest time, people thought, well, he fell down a mine shaft or something mysterious happened to him. Well, his girlfriend came online and said he's had depression problems for a long time.
Yeah.
And she's convinced that he went out there to unsubscribe to life.
Yeah.
And she has a compelling reason to think that, because he left his camera at home that he was using. So it just shows that he wasn't going out to film the M cave.
Yes.
But
I do
they're not sure
story.
anyone's found it since. They're not sure.
Yeah, it was a fascinating story. You know, when you talked about those vibrations, it reminded me of something that's not really related. But again, it's not something we could, it kind of goes back to our conversation about the pyramids.
Right.
Do you know that inside some of those pyramids, some of these new age scientists went in there and started pumping sounds into them? And you know what they noticed?
What?
It was creating the same exact signs as some of the hieroglyphics.
Oh, really? Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah, scientists noticed that some of the hieroglyphics that they used on their walls, when they would pump a certain frequency, it would cause the dust or sand or whatever to create almost the same exact hieroglyphics.
Oh, I've seen those kind of experiments before, not in that context, but I know what you're talking about.
Well, they did one inside of a king's chamber, and it created this certain hieroglyphic sign. And the guy started doing a little bit of research before they shut him down. And he was bringing all these people there, and they was getting photographs of some of these symbols. And the interesting thing about all of it, because he did this for like a year before they finally shut him down.
Yeah.
He had cancer when he started, and he's been cancer free since then.
Oh. So this is like vibrations might have done this.
He has no clue, but now he opened a center where they're concentrating on using different frequencies to try to pinpoint certain cancers.
It's not in Nevada, is it?
I don't. It was near pyramids. I don't know where he's from.
Oh, okay. It'd be funny if you look at the M cave and you look up and there's this guy's store that heals you with vibrations.
Heals you with vibrations. Like, you're on the right spot.
No, the cave isn't doing anything. It's just the guy's thing upstairs that's doing it.
Very fascinating. But
yeah,
interesting story. Doesn't really fit with what we're talking about.
No, I mean, it's like the vibrations from the M cave. Well, my point with this guy is these guys go out and they don't tell people where they're going.
Yeah.
If he had hurt his leg in the desert, you can die real quickly without water or shelter or something like that. But if someone knows you're supposed to come back at this time and you don't come back later, they'll send someone to get you. And even in Percy Fawcett's time, if you got trapped in the Amazon, people could come to get you if they knew where you were.
Right.
And he's made absolute sure that not even his wife knows where he is.
Not wise.
Not wise.
It's going to disappear, Nick. I can already feel it.
No. Well, that is probably the case. Probably the case. But you can't find that out yet because the next segment is a little intermission.
Oh, an intermission.
Yep, we're going to take a learning journey about some other places that were lost and then found.
Throughout history, tales of lost cities have captured the imaginations of explorers, scholars, and storytellers alike. Many of these cities were initially considered mere myths, whispered through generations as legends or fantastical stories. However, in remarkable instances, what was once deemed the product of myth turned out to be grounded in reality, with the discovery of these ancient civilizations providing a window into our distant past. One of the most famous examples is the city of Troy. For centuries, Troy was known primarily through Homer's epic poems, the Iliad and the Odyssey, where it was described as the site of the legendary Trojan War. Many historians and scholars debated whether Troy ever existed, considering it to be more of a literary creation than a real location. However, in the late 19th century, German archaeologist Heinrich Schliemann set out to find the fabled city and, against all odds, unearthed the ruins of an ancient city in modern-day Turkey that corresponded with the descriptions of Troy. This discovery confirmed that the mythic city was, in fact, rooted in historical reality. Similarly, the city of Machu Picchu in Peru was believed to be a mere legend among the indigenous people of the Andes. Hidden away in the cloud-covered mountains, this city was long forgotten by the outside world. It wasn't until 1911 that American explorer Hiram Bingham, guided by local farmers, rediscovered Machu Picchu. The discovery of this Incan city, with its advanced architecture and breathtaking location, revealed a complex civilization that had been all but erased from history, reaffirming the notion that some myths hold more truth than we might initially believe. Another captivating tale is that of the lost city of Ubar, often referred to as the Atlantis of the Sands. According to Arabian legends, Ubar was a wealthy city that mysteriously disappeared under the sands of the Rub al-Khali Desert. For centuries, this story was thought to be pure myth. However, in the early 1990s, a team of archaeologists and researchers using satellite imagery uncovered the remains of an ancient city at a site in Oman. The discovery of this city, believed to be Ubar, provided evidence that the legends were based on a real place, buried beneath centuries of desert sands. These discoveries remind us that the line between myth and history is often thinner than we imagine. They also serve as a testament to the enduring human spirit of exploration and the desire to uncover the truths hidden within our world's ancient tales.
Ubar. That's just fun to say.
I know, isn't it?
Ubar.
I hadn't heard of that, but at one time, it was spoken in the same breath as Atlantis.
Wow. Makes you wonder sometimes.
Yeah, it makes me wonder a lot of things. Like Ubar, for example, massive city. Like you'll see it when the video comes out, or you'll see it when you edit the video and that clip comes up, because I've included pictures of these actual places for each of these.
Wow.
But I want you to think about something. What would it take for a city? Because these cities sometimes had 1 million people in them.
Yeah.
What would it take for a city we have today to be completely abandoned?
Catastrophic event.
Right. Like, we've never had anything like that. Like, what would it be? Like a meteor strike or a plague or...
Well, now they believe, because for years and years, it was speculated that we was hit by a comet. And that's what caused, like, a lot of people can say that's what caused the Younger Dryas.
Right.
Now they believe that it was not a comet that hit us. There's an offshoot of scientists that believes that it was an asteroid that actually hit us.
Okay.
And the reason for that is they found when they was doing some of this sonar, and they do a lot of that from airplanes, and what they discovered was somewhere in the United States, they found these areas that almost look like little small creeks, or not creeks, little man-made lakes, but they were like all clumped on top of each other. It almost looked like a honeycomb to a degree, but not perfectly like an octagon, you know what I'm saying? Or like a honeycomb design. It wasn't perfect, but it almost looked like that. Or like the ball, you know, different balls will have those weird designs in it. And the only thing that they could come to the conclusion was that there was a lot of ice that was on the ground, and due to an impact that it shot all of this residue up into the sky, and then as it came back down, it was a plethora. But they believe that it was because the earth was hit at such a force that it caused all of this stuff to come up and to create these designs. And they didn't know this really existed until they started doing all this sonar. And I think they just discovered this within the last couple of years.
Right.
And now they're saying that a comet does not have enough force to do that. That
so it got to be asteroids.
It would have to be an asteroid, they believe, that caused it, because that would cause the amount of impact and heat required to cause that much of a lift. I'm going to try to find I literally just watched something on this like 2 weeks ago. I think it was a Joe Rogan episode, I believe.
Oh, yeah?
I believe it was. I believe he had a scientist on, and they was talking about this exact thing. But one of the things they talked about is they believe that's what jump-started the complete loss of civilization for that time period, and that would have caused something like the Younger Dryas to have occurred.
Right. It had completely slipped my mind, but we do have an example of an event that would cause a city to be abandoned, except it didn't. Not everyone left. Chernobyl,
yeah, that's true.
Right, but not everyone left, even in that case.
Yes, that's true.
Like, probably like 1,000 years from here, there'll be people moved back in there, and we'll still have records of it. But
yeah, for sure.
Like these cities, like Machu Picchu. I don't know if you've ever seen photos of that before they started excavating.
Yeah.
I'm not sure I would have known anything was there.
No.
Troy was completely underground. There wasn't a piece of it sticking up until they started excavating.
Yep.
And that was pretty much like if you grabbed a bunch of fairy tale books and got clues to where Mother Goose's house was, and you started digging, and then you found it, right?
Right.
Like, that's just insane. And the Atlantis of the Sands, we found that. We could find Atlantis at any time.
Right.
Water's tricky for us, though.
Oh, yeah, for sure. Well, and it's just like, I'm looking it up now. We just had, for the first time in a very long time, not in my lifetime,
right,
Yellowstone. I'm sure you saw that. It just had,
like we're due for it, or
Well, it was the first time it started spitting debris. And they was scared that there was going to be a form of like a volcanic eruption that was going to be caused by all that.
Right.
But it caused, I'm going to screw this up, hydrothermal explosion that took part of the ground and exploded it up. And this was all while people was there. They had never seen anything like that before.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. But
that scared me.
It scared me too, trust and believe. But this explosion was so massive, and they caught it on video. Have you seen the video of that?
No, I haven't.
Oh man. It's by far the craziest thing I've ever seen. I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to put this on the video also, because there might be a series of you guys that have never seen this also. Nick, I'm going to link it to you now in Discord so you can see what I'm talking about. But it was the first event where this has truly occurred. It's from a Facebook page. I don't know if you can load into it or not. That's just the first video I found of it.
Ooh.
Yeah,
that's quite something. Yeah.
Like, that's a massive explosion. And they have all those
when did this happen?
Like 4 weeks ago.
Oh, crazy.
Yeah, this is like new. This is very old. And people go there to visit because it's, ever so many times you'll have the hot vented air that comes out. And, people's like, oh, let me get some pictures of this. This was so massive. They were scared that like people was going to be injured by this because there was massive boulders that come out of this thing.
Yeah. Well, a lot of people were talking eruption, that it's due for an eruption there.
Yes.
But I listened to a guy talking about it, and he said 400,000 years ago or something like that.
Yeah.
It erupted once.
Yep.
And then 200,000 years ago, it erupted again. So people have been saying for years and decades that it erupts every 200,000 years. So we're due for it to erupt again. But he's like, that's like saying something happened to you 2 years ago.
Right.
And it happened to you a year ago. That means it happens every year.
Right.
Not necessarily.
Well, and there was recently the conversation that came up maybe a month ago, where scientists has basically said that the core of our Earth is now rotating the opposite direction.
Oh, really?
And apparently this happens I forget what they said, every 7 or 14 years or something, it completely switches. And they just determined that it just had done this opposite, which I sit there and I think to myself, doesn't that go against the rules of like some type of a physics?
Like motion and how that's supposed to work? Or?
Like, how do you go the opposite direction? Like, I don't understand how that's possible. But then again, not a scientist over here, folks. Yeah. Listen, I know y'all come here for the scientific strategies that Nick and I have, but we are not scientists. So for all you little buttholes that said stuff in our comments, we don't know what we're talking about. We're podcasters, for God's sakes. Gosh.
Well, in case there was any doubt, I'm going to ask this question. How did they even know?
I don't know. Supposedly it has something to do with, they have these sensors, and these sensors tells us at what level, because apparently it has something to do with our magnetic and gravitational pull also.
Okay, that makes sense.
Now, with that being said, maybe that's not the case, and they're using these typical scientific hypothesis that, well, this is clearly what this means, but it's not like they're down there looking at it. You know what I'm saying?
Well, that's for sure. Because I saw something just the other day that the furthest we've ever dug is like, it was either 1/3 or 2/3 through just the crust.
Yeah, the hole of hell.
Yeah. And a lot of that was not real either.
No, it wasn't real. It was fake.
Yeah, I'm sure it's way further down than that.
I think it was Russia.
If it's even there.
Wasn't it Russia that did it?
Yeah, it was pretty far down, but I mean, the crust is like, if you had a giant jawbreaker,
Yeah.
and that represented the Earth, and you took one lick off of it, that's as far down as we've gone into the Earth.
Right.
Really.
Correct.
So it's not far.
No, we've not done anything. But in reality, we have no clue what's down there, Nick. We have zero clue. It's all scientific.
We have good theories about it, but I mean, you can't see everything with your own eyes, that's for sure.
No, but it'd be the same equivalent of us going, you know, there's this ghost realm, and in this ghost realm, there's this and this and this, and people's going to go, well, how do you know? Like, you're not from the ghost realm. These people aren't from the Earth. We might have scientific
tell me where I'm
instruments.
From. I might be from the ghost realm.
Well, listen, I'll let you. We are wearing the ghost busting
That's
shirt.
right.
Who you gonna call? Nick and Bert.
That's right. For most people, this means we get rid of ghosts. What this means is we're not going back to the ghost realm. You can't make us.
Can't make us. We're staying.
Yeah.
We like it here.
That's right. Yeah. But yeah, so all these places were lost and recovered.
Yeah.
And I don't think that there's anything that could happen that would make us completely abandon a city in the modern times.
I don't know, man. I don't know about that. Only from the standpoint of if it becomes unbearable or unsafe.
Right.
Like maybe some people will stay, but I think the bulk would leave. And then the ones that did stay are going to die off.
Right. Well, that's true. But like, you hear a lot about, you know, why these different places, theories about why they went off the map. Like there was a drought and they couldn't get food. Well, you know what would happen with humans?
Cannibalism.
Is we wouldn't move out.
Oh, okay.
We'd have merchants bringing food in. What?
Nothing.
Oh, I didn't hear that. It sounds like it was good.
You said, you know what us humans did? And I said cannibalism. But then you went a different direction.
That's true too.
I'm like, oh, never mind.
Well, I mean, I'm sure some of that went on. But people wouldn't move out. Merchants would bring food in and become wealthy.
But I think it comes down to that's what we do nowadays because civilization has advanced so significantly. But back then, I mean, think about it. There's been cities that's been decimated to the point of, you know, people being killed. Like there's one near you, the city of, is it Anoka? Is it Anoka in Canada?
Mm-hmm.
It was a city that was near a water, and it was a tribe, and these people went there and they determined that the entire city was gone. They just disappeared.
Oh, is that Roanoke?
Nope. This was in Canada land.
Oh, I don't know it.
Yeah, it was like the city of Anoka or something like that. It's basically like a Roanoke. Canadian,
weird.
Canadian Roanoke. Let me see what pops up. But it was kind of the same kind of story. But it was a group of people, and when they got there, they tried to figure out basically where did these people go, because they could never figure out, like, was it a case where for a while they thought, well, maybe animals killed them. But what's weird is the guy that got there, when he got there, there was still fires that was burning, like embers of the fire.
So it was not long after they left that he arrived then.
No. And there was a series of, man, what was that called? I want to say it's like, it starts with an A. Nothing's popping up when I type this. But it was like tribesmen that was there. Man, I'm going to have to find this. I'm pretty sure I have it because I was going to do a podcast on it, but there's just not enough there to sink an entire podcast into. But
I guess people don't realize we come across that a lot.
Yeah.
Like we're really interesting stories, but they're way too short.
Yeah, and that's the biggest problem, especially when there's not like technology that's kind of helped advance a story a little bit. It's like if it's just folklore or a story and you're like, well, there's some validity there, but then you continue to look, it's like, man, there's maybe enough to do. Like in the early days when we would do get excited about doing an hour podcast.
Right.
Yeah, you could. Oh, here it is. I found it. I still got the script for it. It's the Angakuni Lake.
I don't know it. Was it a settlement or a whole city?
I believe it. Well, here we go. Segment 1. Imagine a place so far removed from the bustling cities and crowded towns, a place so remote that only the bravest dare to venture there. This is a land of Canadians' great wilderness. It's a mysterious
Which
body.
is like 90% of our country.
Yeah, exactly. Mysterious body of water known as the Angakuni Lake. Most of the lakes are teeming with life, but not the Angakuni. In 1930s, I'm looking to see how many people was in this area. Like I had an entire podcast basically wrote out on this. There was a few, it looks like a bigger group. So it probably wasn't like a city. It's probably like a village or the equivalent of like a village. But these people just flat disappeared. It was like a Roanoke, basically. It was a Canadian Roanoke, which is the best way to put it. But so I don't butcher this thing anymore. I'm going to put the name of that city there.
These cities we're talking about kind of disappeared too, because, those people move out, they'd still have told other people about it.
Oh, for sure. 100%. Because again, this is how they, got their stuff. It's like we was talking about how merchants would come in. That's exactly what happened with this Angakuni Lake. Oh, when I typed it in, they put mystery, it pops up. It's near Nunavut, Canada.
Nunavut?
Yes.
Oh, okay, that's in the Great North there.
My guess is it's really cold by the looks of it.
Oh yeah, it's always cold there.
Yeah,
they used to be called the Northwest Territories, but then they become Nunavut and I forget the other one.
Well, here it says it's the legend of the vanishing village. So even they're saying it's a village.
Yeah, and that happens all the time.
Oh, well, there you
go. Villages.
Well, it says the article states that Joe LaBelle found an empty Eskimo camp with 6 tents and that of 25 men, women, and children that vanished. The story also appeared in Frank Edwards' 1959 book, Stranger Than Science. Other versions appeared in the Whitney Strieber's Science.
Oh, you've heard that name before.
Yeah.
Because he wrote that book about the Shag Harbor incident.
Yes.
Yep.
And it's also a part of the world's greatest UFO mysteries because they believe that maybe UFOs took these people also.
When I don't know what happened, I usually blame UFOs myself.
Well, that's in your like your backyard, Nick. You better check into that one. You need to be careful.
I know. I'll get my alien fighting gloves on and I'm going to go check it out.
But yeah, I mean, that's a case, right? Like even 25 people, I guess. You figure this is 25 people that's thriving in this environment. Like that's their bang zone. They've been there forever.
Yeah.
And then one day they get there and the campfires are smoldering. And it looks like there was people there. I believe they found some of the people dead.
Oh.
And the rest was just gone, but they could never figure out where these people went.
Man.
So, I mean, it happens.
Yeah. I mean, even if a village disappears without a trace, that's pretty wild on its own.
Well, think about
like 1 million people going. That's something else.
Yeah, but I feel like that makes it even harder because you know as well as I do, when there's that kind of frustration and things that's going on and you have all these people that's trying to, in this case, escape or get away from an area. Then they start fighting about how they're going to do it. And then there's turmoil. And then nothing happens. And especially if you got a disaster going on, well, it's going to wipe the entire civilization out as they're trying to fight about the right thing to do.
Yep. I mean, even if it's really fast, like some people still get away from these things, like Pompeii, where it happened so quick, people were stuck in their final poses.
Correct.
But so those are just some examples of other cities that this could happen to. So the lost city of Z, Atlantis, these things are things that are very, I don't even know if it's like possible. I'd say it's almost probable that these things existed.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, 100%. I mean, think about it. When you see going through history, case after case after case after case after case, you have to start thinking, you know what? These aren't necessarily legends or folklore.
Right.
These have to be something that occurred.
Yeah. Like if I told a story about a whole city and I wanted you to believe that my story was true, that would be awful hard.
Oh, yeah.
So there must be some grains of truth in all of those, because if you were trying to tell a story that someone's supposed to believe, I wouldn't say, oh yeah, there's a city 3 hours away called blah, blah, blah.
Right.
Like you'd just be like, no, there's not.
Right.
You know, and then no one would ever tell that story again because you don't believe it.
Correct.
So you wouldn't tell it to someone.
No.
So
there's got to be something
interesting stuff. Yeah. But after that brief intermission, are you interested to hear about the next steps of Percy Fawcett's journeys?
You best believe. I want to see what's happening.
Yeah, let's get on the train. Choo choo.
As Percy Fawcett, his son Jack, and Raleigh Rimmel pushed further into the uncharted depths of the Amazon, they began to encounter things that defied explanation. The last communication from Fawcett came in late May 1925 in a letter to his wife, Nina. He described crossing the upper Xingu River and entering a region of the jungle that was unlike anything they had seen before. The jungle, he wrote, seemed almost sentient, as if it were aware of their presence and intent on protecting the secrets it held. Strange phenomena began to occur. Lights in the sky, unidentifiable sounds echoing through the trees, and fleeting glimpses of figures in the shadows. Despite these occurrences, Fawcett remained undeterred. He was certain that they were on the verge of discovering Z, the legendary city that had haunted his dreams for years. But as the days passed, the challenges grew more severe. The jungle became more impenetrable, the creatures more hostile, and the sense of being watched more intense. Jack and Raleigh began to voice their concerns, but Fawcett's obsession drove them forward. They had come too far to turn back now. Yet, the deeper they went, the more they realized that the jungle was not just a physical barrier. It was a guardian, a protector of the ancient secrets it held.
Fawcett's Journal, June 1925.
The jungle has changed. It is as if we have crossed into another world, a place where the rules of nature no longer apply. Yesterday, we saw lights in the sky, flickering like fireflies, but much larger, moving with a purpose that cannot be explained. The men are on edge. Jack is beginning to question our mission, and Raleigh has taken to praying under his breath. But I know we are close. Today, we found a statue, half buried in the earth, its eyes gazing skyward as if in eternal vigil. I cannot shake the feeling that we are being watched, not by animals or men, but by something else. Z is near, and with it, the truth I have sought all my life.
So some odd stuff started to happen at this stage.
Mm-hmm.
Now, in the book, and there was also a big movie made of this, I'd say 5 years ago. They played all of this off as if they were starting to hallucinate because of starvation, dehydration, all that kind of stuff. But these were things that they recorded, that they always felt like they were being watched. They're seeing strange lights in the sky in the night. And the people who are running these letters back, they were corroborating these stories. So something odd's happening there. One thing, it's kind of funny, is I wrote this from the letters and different stuff, and the part about the statue looking skywards, I just passed over that every time I wrote that. That was kind of interesting.
Yeah, it makes you wonder. And, you know, we go back to this, I feel like, in so many episodes where there's always some type of tie-in to something that has to do with UFOs, extra dimensional creatures. Like, it's hard for me to believe that there's all these different things, yet we can't agree that there's something else above and beyond us. That's the part that I can never wrap my brain around. It's like all these civilizations know this stuff now, whether it's firsthand knowledge or it's passed down through the generations and they get lost in translation. Or, I mean, heck, sometimes I wonder just how much is our own governments that prevent us from knowing this stuff.
Well, we know that they do that kind of thing. Like they tell us even that they do that kind of thing because they have top secret things that we can't know. Right. So it could very well be. I do, having the gift of knowing what's coming next. I'm glad you mentioned the interdimensional thing again, because there's more coming that is going to like play into that. And this stuff came up in like all the Atlantis stories and that kind of thing too. Yes. That like these things are kind of otherworldly sometimes. Right. But, you know, we keep running into those, though, story after story after story. There's always, like, I don't know if you remember, but when we did the episode on the crop circles, there was that, first it was like the 1800s or the 1500s, I think, where they had that newspaper thing and it talked about that guy that he just couldn't do his entire field or whatever it was. And he had swore to, I think, the devil that if he helped him do his field or whatever, and then he ended up seeing these balls of lights that came down and it did all that stuff. You know, these people back then, it's not like it was just all these crazy folklores, because again, we see it in history time after time after time after time, and we go, well, they're just a bunch of crazy people, they just writing a whole bunch of stuff for fun. I don't think so. I don't think that's the case. So you're creating statues that's looking up into the sky. Like, what's the point? Why would anyone do that unless there was a specific purpose for it? Right. And at a specific point where they're starting to see lights in the sky. Correct. Like, that's interesting. And I do remember that episode because I remember being really fascinating with that. And I think it's sort of like I was saying earlier, where they may have been seeing things they don't understand and maybe they made up causes for them. Right. But there was still weird things happening that they had to make up causes for. Oh, absolutely. I agree with that. Or 100%. It is these things. Correct. There's got to be a cause and an effect. There has to be. Right. It's the only way around it. Yeah, like let's take the crop circle thing for example. Like, pretend we're like a Puritan neighborhood, and I'm like, there's a weird pattern that just got mowed into my field. I think that the devil did that, I might say to you. Right. And since we're both Puritans, you're like, yeah, the devil definitely did that. But you'd also probably say, can I see your field? Right, for sure. And if I made the whole thing up, I'd be like, nah, not today. You can't look at that. Yeah. Right. We'll talk about later. But more likely I'd take you out there and you'd say, oh, this is weird. Right. surely it was the devil. But,
right.
We don't know what it is, but
no clue. And that's part of the thing that when we go back and we look at these stories, they probably attributed a lot of things to things that was not the case, but it doesn't negate the fact that there was something that caused that thought process to even occur.
Right. Maybe the day before the devil showed up at my house and said, "Hey, you little jerk, I'm going to mow your field and there's nothing you can do about it.
You can't stop me."
And then, the next day my field's mowed and I'm like, well, it was the devil. He told me he was going to do that.
Dang it. He's so good. He's so good at doing these things.
He said, no one's ever going to believe you. I'm Bill Murray.
That's the truth. That's facts.
But there's stuff going on in these. Now the last segment is just a little flavor section, and I'm going to warn you in advance. I've got a journal entry on there, but I made that up.
Okay, that's fair.
Yeah, I just made that up based on the things that they said they were seeing. There was no further journal entries. Like in that last segment, it said the last journal entry said this.
Yeah. That
was the last journal entry. This next one, I made it up.
Nick just added a little flavor.
Yep. It's just a journal entry, but there's nothing in that journal entry that they didn't say in the other letters.
That's all that matters.
I'll say that.
That's all that matters. Well, let's see.
Let's hear that.
Let's see what kind of fabrications Nick's making up over here.
The disappearance of Percy Fawcett remains one of the most enduring mysteries of the 20th century. After his last communication in May 1925, Fawcett, his son Jack, and Raleigh Rimmel were never heard from again. Their vanishing sparked a frenzy of speculation. Had they found the lost city of Z and decided to stay? Had they been killed by hostile tribes? Or had the jungle itself claimed them? Over the years, numerous expeditions were launched to find them, but none succeeded. The jungle had swallowed them whole, leaving behind only questions and a legend that has captivated the world for nearly a century. Some believe that Fawcett and his companions stumbled upon something far more extraordinary than a lost city. Theories range from the plausible to the fantastical. Some say they found an advanced civilization hidden from the modern world, while others suggest they entered a portal to another dimension, a place where time and space function differently. There are even those who believe that Z was a city of dark magic, a place that ensnared those who sought it and refused to let them go. But no matter what happened to Fawcett, one thing is certain. His story and the legend of the lost city of Z will continue to inspire adventurers and dreamers for generations to come.
Fawcett's final journal entry, July 1925.
The jungle has revealed its final secret. Z is not a city of gold or stone, but a place where the lines between our world and another blur. We have found it, but at a cost I could never have imagined. Jack and Raleigh have seen it too. The doorway shimmering like water, leading to a place beyond comprehension. We have crossed into Z, but I fear we can never return. If anyone finds this journal, know that the jungle holds more than just trees and rivers. It holds the key to mysteries that defy time and space. We have found Z, and in doing so, have become part of its eternal story.
Bam.
This is Nick's version of a found footage film.
That's right. It kind of is, isn't it? Kind of is. But that last journal entry was based on what people had speculated and what was said in his letters. So I just made it a little bit more flair.
Yeah, just you added a little flavor to the story.
Yeah.
You're the bouillon. You added a bouillon to the...
That's right. Just a little sprinkle here and there.
Sprinkling. little sprinkling, man.
I mean, gotta have some creative control.
Gots to. Listen, we're a reputable podcast company that just adds a little bit of flavor here and there.
That's right. Yeah, I disclosed it.
Totally disclosed it. It's totally good. It's all good.
Yeah. But people had speculated that it was some kind of dimensional barrier that they passed through. And that's sort of where that ended. Like, they start seeing the lights, they see the statues looking skyward, and then they've reached a threshold where they went through and they could never come back.
It's definitely an interesting thought process. Makes you kind of wonder what did happen. And honestly, it kind of opens up the door of, if it is extra dimensional, does that mean that there's a capability based on the place?
Could be. We've speculated that a lot in national parks and stuff.
Correct.
Now, on the skeptic's hand, it's very easy to go into the Amazon and never be seen again.
Yeah, for sure. 100%.
So all those expeditions going in, they have no idea where they've gone. What are the chances they're actually going to find them?
That's true.
Slim to none.
Yeah, that's going to be, in the great words of TV from when I was a kid, they's Dundada. Dundada. They're gone.
Yep, they're gone.
They're gone.
But unfortunately, since we were role-playing that we were on the expedition with them, we were also gone.
Or we made it out. This is how we got the last journal entry coming back, Nick.
Oh, that's right. I brought that back with me.
It's like he wasn't even there, Nick. Come on, man.
Oh, my goodness. Man, what am I thinking? I must have hit my head on a jungle rock or something.
We would have never wrote that journal entry either. That was from the man, the myth, and the legend.
Percy Fawcett, straight from the source.
Straight from the source.
Ink was still wet when I brought it back.
That's right. It's crazy. Oh, man.
I think that's funny to insert ourselves into these adventures sometimes.
I do, too. It makes the story better.
Yeah, I like that.
Man.
It was Percy Fawcett, Raleigh, Jack, Nick, and Bert.
That's right. We was the only two that made it. Listen, it's a miracle.
Yeah. I mean, we're quite good at escaping.
We're like, what was that guy's name from Green Acres? You ever watch Green Acres, Nick?
I've never seen Green Acres.
There was this guy, I think his name was like Mr. Haney.
Okay.
But he used to sell stuff. We're like him. We're a little shisty. Hey, we found this here book. See, in this here book, there's a description of the story. We happen to be there. You can buy this glorious book today for only $17.95.
Man, why aren't you voice acting? You're wasting your time here.
What are you talking about, Nick? We're using it for this podcast.
That's right.
Well, what says y'all at home? What do you think happened to old Percy? You think he's gone out in the wilderness? You think he's in an extra dimensional plane? Where do you think they're at? Huh? Where do you think the entire people's at? Where do you think they went?
Do you think he wrote that last entry?
Yeah, do you think he wrote that? Or do you think for $17.95 you get your hands on that there book?
I love it.
Oh, man. Well, hopefully y'all enjoyed this podcast. Wherever you're listening to podcasts, make sure you rate us. And if you've not rated us, tell us in the comments down below why you didn't.
Yeah, and rate us good.
Exactly. Rate us good after. Well, hopefully y'all enjoyed it. I want to thank everyone for stopping by. Until we see you on the next podcast, goodbye.
Bye-bye.
In the heart of the jungle where the rivers run deep, a city lies hidden where the ancients still sleep. Through the vines and the darkness, a secret untold, a place where the legends and the myths unfold. Lost in the night, where the storms still whisper and the stars burn bright. City of wonders, hidden from view in the depths of the jungle where the skies turn blue. We follow the footsteps of those who came before through the city remains in the echoes of the legends, in the jungle's vein, city of wonder.